Hello, hello, my girlie. Welcome to Talks with SAE, the only late night, thought provoking, giggle inducing podcast for my ladies whose days melt into their nights. I'm Zahra, your tulip-loving, heels obsessed host who, just like you, is trying to figure it all out while finding moments of balance, discipline, and self love else. If you haven't already, be sure to follow and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. Tonight, girlie, we're exploring the power and importance of healthy boundaries in our lives and in our relationships, especially as it relates to protecting our peace and especially with the holiday season in full swing. Before we dive in, I want to remind you to sign up for our email newsletter where you'll get all the exclusive content, free resources, and yes, holiday goodies. You can find the link to sign up in the show notes and in the YouTube description box. Let's dive in, shall we? So, I want to start things off with emotional boundaries, especially with people we deeply care about. Because let's face it, how many times have you felt this like twitch of guilt after saying no to a family member or a close friend or your spouse? So, guilt is, guilt. Um, Imagine your best friend calls you, right? And she needs to vent about her stressful day, and you yourself, you're already stretched thin. You're trying to juggle work deadlines, personal commitments, trying to find some me time. And you want to be there for her, but you also know that you need to recharge. For you, saying no to your best friend feels selfish, right? But the truth is, setting emotional boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It isn't about this selfishness that is bad. It's about creating space to protect your well being. I view boundaries as like our individual ways of protecting ourselves in every aspect. So, your boundaries are your internal and external ways of respecting yourself, but also ensuring that you're physically safe, that you're emotionally safe, and most importantly, that you're mentally safe. When you set boundaries, you're actually positioning yourself to show up more authentically and fully for yourself and for those around you. Think about a time when you felt drained from overextending yourself. And what if instead, at that time, you had said, I can't chat right now, but I'm here for you tomorrow, or not right now, but another time, or just simply not right now? How would that have changed the dynamic, right? And I want to just quickly say, if you had said no to that person at that time, and there would have been like a whole set of problems with them getting told no, wait, you have to reevaluate a lot about that dynamic, but that's for another day. But what I'm trying to say, emotional boundaries are a form of self love, they're a form of self care and self respect. Because, listen, my girlie, if you yourself do not love you or care about you wholly or even respect you, how can you expect anyone else to? And that's why having boundaries should be as mandatory as clean drinking water. They help you preserve your energy, and they help you ensure that you're not pouring from an empty cup. Again, it's not about being selfish in a bad way. It's about ensuring you have the emotional bandwidth to truly support yourself first and then others when you can. So, I was at the beach this past weekend outlining this episode, realizing it's actually the holiday season. Like, this is actually holiday season time. And so I can't skip over that. And this is especially a time when boundaries seem to blur, whether it's the countless gatherings that you're obligated to, whether it's family dinners or work parties, there's this unspoken rule that we must be everywhere, doing everything for everyone. But what if this holiday season you flip the script? What if instead of the traditional yes, yes, yes to every invite, to everything, to every person, why not rethink your approach? Let's say you've always attended the big family reunion at this time of the year, and like clockwork, every single year, just the thought of it honestly makes you sick because you know how messy or toxic or just full of unnecessary interactions occur during those gatherings. But this year, you decide to create and enforce a boundary. It could be leaving early. It could be, only being around the family members that don't leave you feeling like crap. It could be taking consistent breaks throughout the gathering to recoup and recenter yourself. Or it could be you just don't go at all, and the holidays should be about joy and connection, not obligation to the point where you get yourself sick from the stress of it all, or from the fact that normally at the end of it all, you feel like a shell of yourself. Prioritizing, prioritizing your peace might mean saying no to the annual office party. It might mean skipping that extended family gathering that always leaves you feeling emotionally exhausted in terrible ways. And I just want to tell you right now that it's okay. It's absolutely okay. Honoring your limits and embracing new traditions, whatever that might be for you, can actually enhance your holiday experience. And it can actually make it more meaningful and less stressful and less just crappy. The holiday season is honestly so crappy for so many of us because we just feel like we have to meet so many obligations to the point where we lose ourselves. Think of it like this: every yes to something draining is a no to your peace. And this is very much a play on the opportunity cost theory, which I won't get into because that's economics. But, you know, when you're saying yes to something that drains you and yes to something that could result in some very, very terrible experiences, you're saying no to your peace. And at this point in your life, is saying no to your peace really worth it? Is it really worth disrupting the either small piece that you have or the piece that you are finally starting to cultivate for yourself? Is it worth disrupting that? Prioritize what truly brings you joy and just let go of the rest. And even if you feel guilty letting go of that, still let go. Still let go. Growth happens when we're uncomfortable. Growth happens with guilt. It does. It does. But I want to touch on the distinction between setting boundaries and protecting your peace. So far, it may seem like they're interchangeable, but they actually address different aspects of our well being. So, boundaries define our interactions with others. So, for example, you might tell a friend, hey, I can't stay up late talking tonight because I need to rest. That's you setting a boundary, right? But then protecting your peace, that's something broader and about how you manage your own energy and time and mental space. Think about it like this: what drains you? Just think about it. For some people, it's constant notifications on their phone. Maybe for you, it's your cluttered workspace, or maybe it's the fact that you feel like you have to say yes to every social invitation because you've convinced yourself that if you don't go to all of them, then people will get mad at you or you'll be missing out on something. But with all of these, protecting your peace means recognizing what your energy drainers are and then taking the necessary steps to either minimize those energy drainers or completely get rid of them altogether. And maybe it's as simple as turning off your phone for an hour or turning off the notifications for your phone. Or maybe it's scheduling downtime between all the things that you need to be doing in life right now. And by downtime, that could be like me time, that could be like an hour to yourself, it could be a solo date, it could be journaling. Those can be ways you're actively trying to protect your peace. But actively protecting your peace, you're ensuring that you remain centered and grounded. And that is so, so important, my girlie, because I say this to the people in my life all the time. And I constantly remind myself of this. When you're not good from the inside, it'll always show on the outside. It'll always show on the outside. And one of the most obvious ways that it shows is through your eyes. It's through your eyes. Have you ever just stopped and looked at all of your pictures in the moments where you weren't yourself, in the moments where you were low, in the moments where you were happy? all those different experiences, right? How did your eyes look throughout those moments? If you look at your eyes, you will know when you felt drained, when you were good, when you were stressed. I'm trying to make a point of saying you have to actively be trying to protect your peace. Because life, my girly, life will test your peace, and people will test your peace, and people will test your boundaries. So you have to be active about it, because by actively protecting your peace, you will ensure that you remain centered and grounded, so that regardless of those external pressures, regardless of what's happening around you that's out of your control, you're still good from the inside. In order to be good from the inside, you have to enforce boundaries. You have to have boundaries. And you know what, girlie? I want to say something right now. So this podcast, it's about a real, raw, and authentic conversation, and it's about our growth. And with that being said, I want to get a little extra real for a second, because I never see people talk about this, and I think it needs to be talked about way more. And that's, peace does not always mean comfort. It doesn't. Sometimes the path to true peace requires you going through so much discomfort, and as in probably 90 to 99% of cultivating peace for yourself means being uncomfortable. It means facing fears you've been avoiding, facing realities and truths you've subconsciously been putting to the side. If you think about those tough conversations you've been avoiding, or the toxic relationships you've hesitated to leave because of how much you care about those people, or because of how long you've known them, or even because you just don't want to be alone, like you've been holding on to a friendship or a romantic relationship that's no longer good for you. Every interaction in that friendship, in that relationship, feels forced. And because it feels forced, because it is forced, it leaves you feeling emotionally drained. As a result, you're just like, what? What is happening here? What is going on? Why do I feel like crap? Why am I not happy? Why does it feel like there's chaos around me when it comes to this friendship, this relationship? Why am I not at peace? Well, because you're holding on to something that you shouldn't be holding on to. Stepping away from a dynamic that you have grown so used to, it feels uncomfortable and it's scary, but it is 100% necessary for your peace and for your growth as a woman. I've mentioned it already. Life will test you, my girlie. It will test your peace like no other. And people will test your boundaries like no other. And you have to enforce those things. Oof. I, I'm thinking about like all the times people have tested me personally, and all the times I've witnessed women being tested, and women's boundaries just being tested and crossed. And it just makes me so mad. And I just hope that you're not one of those women where you are allowing your boundaries to be tested over and over and over again. And I hope that you are learning that being uncomfortable is okay. Which made me just think about this thing that someone said to me once, which was, productive discomfort is about growth. And life has taught me this the hard way. There's discomfort that pushes you to grow, and discomfort that drains you and disrupts your safety. The former is necessary. Whoever you want to be in this life, whatever your goals are in this life, however you want your life to be, it is absolutely necessary to be uncomfortable for growth. But if you are uncomfortable because you're being drained and your safety and peace are being disrupted, that's detrimental. That's very detrimental. My girlie, okay. I have so much racing in my head. Because again, I keep thinking about all of the experiences I've seen, and how do I say this? If there's one thing, my girlie, you take from anything I ever say to you or anything I ever say, it should be this: never let anyone tiptoe around your boundaries. Never let anyone tiptoe around your boundaries of physical, mental, and emotional safety. It doesn't matter who they are. Absolutely do not allow it. And don't buy into that fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you nonsense. It should be, I stated my boundaries clearly and you crossed them. As a result, you crossed my physical, mental, and or emotional safety. So I'm done. So I'm done. And then you move accordingly. Whether that means cutting ties, whether it means slowly distancing yourself, or taking whatever steps are needed to protect your peace, do it. Too often, oh man, girly, too often I see women shattered because they forgave without real solutions or changes. Their boundaries were crossed and apologies were made, but nothing changed. And then the cycle repeated. Don't do that. Don't allow that. Please do not allow that. Okay? Don't allow anyone to test your boundaries. Don't ever allow anyone to test your boundaries. But back to discomfort. When you're in a moment of discomfort, when you are feeling uncomfortable about something, you have to ask yourself, is this leading me towards growth? Or is this pulling me away from my peace? Is this pulling me into a type of darkness that is unsafe? My point is, like, you have the power to protect yourself. You have the power to protect your emotional and mental energy. Even if you feel like you don't, you do, because you can set the smallest boundaries. And if someone crosses those boundaries, or there's always someone that's going to try and cross them. If they do, you have to stand 10 toes down. You cannot be someone that's like, oh, okay, well, this is mom. This is what mom wants. Or this is dad. Or this is older sister. Or this is best friend. Or this is my husband or my boyfriend or whoever. And I just have to go with it. No, no, you don't. You don't. Okay? Because if you don't take care of you, if you don't prioritize you, no one else will. No one else will, excuse me. If you don't respect you, no one else will. We teach others how to treat us. Remember that. Now, this is not to say that you won't feel guilty for it, but such is life, girly. Such is life. I know you probably want me to be like, I know you're gonna feel guilty, and here are the ways to deal. No, such is life. Feel guilty. Okay, you feel guilty. Such is life. A lot of us feel guilty when we step away or set limits. It isn't about being disrespectful. It isn't about being rude. It's about creating a healthier dynamic where you can engage authentically without burning out, where you can be present without harming yourself, without allowing others to harm you. When you enforce and keep those boundaries, you are actually fostering healthier, more genuine relationships, which honestly contributes to a better sorry, which honestly contributes to a better quality. I can't, guys, girly, sometimes there are certain letters and words in the English dictionary that I just cannot pronounce for the life of me. Let's try it again. What I'm trying to say is, hopefully I pronounce this word right. Enforcing and having boundaries allows you to have more healthier, more genuine relationships. And when you have healthier, more genuine relationships, it contributes to a better quality. All right, I said it. Quality of life for you and honestly for everyone else around you as well. But I want to talk about you for a moment. Let's talk about you. Sometimes you are the cause of your own stress and unhappiness. Girly, sometimes it's you. And this happens when we fail to enforce the boundaries we know we need to be enforcing. You can't be asking like, oh, why do my parents call me all the time knowing I'm going to pick up and I can't stand it? They call you all the time because they know you're going to pick up. What are you complaining about? That's you. Because you're not like, hey, mom, dad, Can we talk on this days or things like that. Like it's okay to say no to your parents, girly. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I promise. I promise. And maybe that's the worst example, but that's the example I thought of. But think about the times you've said yes to something you didn't want to do. And why did you say yes? Honestly, girly, why did you say yes? Was it out of fear of disappointing others, or maybe you didn't want to seem selfish? This is actually people pleasing behavior, and um, it's a form of self sabotage, and it's a cycle where you neglect your own needs so you can meet others' expectations, and that just leads to burnout. It leads to resentment, anger, regret, stress, etc. And every time you just ignore a boundary you need, or every time you allow a boundary you need to be having to be walked all over, or every time you allow others to tiptoe on your boundaries, you teach yourself and you teach them that your needs are secondary, that they don't matter to you at all. And so if they don't matter to you at all, they don't matter to those people. You teach yourself and you teach them that your safety does not matter. And I've said it, you teach people how to treat you. So if you want to be treated like an afterthought, if you want a life where you're used, where people take and take and take from you, then don't have boundaries. Then don't enforce boundaries. Then allow people to keep crossing you. Allow people to keep doing that and keep forgiving them. Just keep doing that. But then later on, when you start getting upset, when you start wondering why everyone everywhere seems to just take and take and take and never give to you, do not blame them. Do not blame them. Do not make yourself out to be the victim because it's your fault. It's your fault. Your unhappiness, your sadness, your resentment, your not so great romantic relationships, your shitty friendships, your toxic work environments, all of that will be because of you and no one else. And that's because you kept allowing people to drain you. You kept allowing people to take up every bit of mental energy, of emotional energy, and even of physical energy you have because you could not respect or honor yourself enough to set and enforce boundaries. It's that simple. It's that simple. So take a moment and just think, where in your life are you not enforcing necessary boundaries? It could be with a boss who's always overstepping. It could be with a friend who constantly leans on you, but they never reciprocate. Or it could even be with yourself, where you're overcommitting to things out of a sense of obligation. I mentioned this earlier, but small steps. Start with small actionable steps. Start by acknowledging that you having a lack of boundaries or you having boundaries but not enforcing them is self sabotage. Be honest with yourself and then commit to one small change for a certain period of time, right? So give yourself, I always say, give yourself 3 months, 3 to 6 months to change something, especially something that is as hard as enforcing boundaries. Maybe, you're not going to answer work emails after a certain time, or you're going to decline a social invite when your body and your mental is telling you, I need to rest. These are small acts of enforcing boundaries, but they are small acts that are absolutely monumental in reclaiming your energy and protecting your peace and keeping you safe. Your safety should be your number one priority. Something I've been doing for years now is being intentional with my boundaries. There are definitely times when I set boundaries, I know problems will arise. So something I do and something I recommend for you is focus breathing. Girlie, let me tell you right now, this has brought me back to earth so many times when I was in the middle of enforcing a boundary with someone who just seemed to like salivate at the mouth with anger. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, those people. Oof. So Focused breathing, it's a relaxation tool, but it's also how I keep myself safe when I know a boundary I'm enforcing is one the receiver is not going to receive well, or when I'm feeling guilty and in the wrong for enforcing a boundary I know is necessary. I highly recommend researching this on your own time, but I'll give you like a little rundown of how I do it. So find a quiet space, sit or lay down, whichever is more comfortable for you, and close your eyes. And then place your hands wherever you feel full or tight. So for me, normally my chest gets tight, and I'll put my right hand on my chest where my heart is, and my left hand on my tummy, close to where I normally get period cramps. Then take a big deep breath, like you're trying to swallow as much air as possible, and then take that deep breath for a count of 5 and hold it for 5. And then you slowly exhale for a count of 7, and you can repeat this cycle as many times as you need. As you're doing this, just focus on your heartbeat and the pace of your breathing, nothing else. Sometimes while I'm doing this, I'll repeat to myself, self above else, self above else, self above else. And as I'm repeating this and listening to my heartbeat and my breathing, the anxiety and the guilt, they slowly diminish. And this is important because focused breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps reduce anxiety and stress. And it brings you back to the present moment, and it helps to ground you in the now, and it allows you a quick reset, which sometimes is so necessary when you are feeling guilty and enforcing your boundaries. And it not only calms you, but it also gives you like this sense of control over your emotions, including guilt. Imagine you're at a holiday event, feeling the weight of expectations to like network as much as possible at this event, or like talk to this person that you hate talking to because all they do is gossip. If you take a moment for breath work, before the event or even at the event, when you go to the bathroom or something, you'll notice how it shifts your experience. Um, the last thing I want to mention is the power, the art, the beauty of no, not this year. At its core, it's about redefining your priorities. And when you think about how often you say yes out of habit, or say yes out of fear of missing out, or because of societal pressure, what if you change your perception to no is a sentence? And you realize that no is honestly, especially for us women, it's a bold declaration of self respect, of self care. Because by saying no to like draining activities, to draining people, you're saying yes to experiences and moments that truly nourish your soul. And no, not this year. It can be your way of asserting control over your life. It could be your way of discerning what aligns with your values and letting go of what doesn't. Because, my girlie, please know your peace, your safety is worth protecting. And you cannot depend on anyone else to protect those things for you. And saying no can initially feel uncomfortable, but it's honestly a powerful step towards breaking free from this cycle of overcommitment that is expected from us. It's acknowledging that you're not for everyone and for everything, and that's okay. So let me ask you, girlie, what are you willing to say no to this season to protect your peace? What's on your no list that's going to free you from unnecessary burdens you've carried for too long? Do you honestly respect yourself enough to say and enforce, no, not this year? All right, girlie, we've explored how healthy boundaries are vital for protecting your peace, especially as we all navigate the ups, downs, and in betweens of the holiday season, which means it's important to communicate your limits clearly and respectfully. But sometimes people will test you and you're going to have to crash out on them. That's a decision for you to make. It's also okay to say no to things that don't serve you, and regularly checking in with yourself can help you adjust your boundaries as your life changes and evolves. And lastly, healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect and understanding. And those start with knowing yourself and knowing your own limits. So, my girlie, take a moment to think about your boundaries and how they're affecting your life. Are there aspects of your life that need clear limits to safeguard your peace? And to help with this, I've created a healthy boundaries checklist. It's a free resource filled with prompts and tips to help you not only evaluate your boundaries, but prioritize your peace. You can find this free resource in the show notes or the YouTube description box. Before we wrap up, let's talk about next week's episode. Next week, we're going to uncover how a strong support network can elevate your personal growth and your mental well being. To close out our time this evening, please remember that setting boundaries is essential for safeguarding your peace. And by prioritizing your well being, you're not just taking care of yourself, you're creating a space for those around you to thrive as well. Don't forget to sign up for our email newsletter for exclusive content, free resources, and the best holiday goodies. Also, don't miss this episode's deep dive, which is available on Instagram Reels this Friday at 12 p.m. And that's it for tonight's episode, my girlie. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm so glad to have you on this journey. If you've enjoyed this episode, go ahead and tap that follow or subscribe button and leave a review. It lets me and the algorithms know you're really here to grow, learn, and say. You can also find me and Talks with SAE on Instagram at Talks with SAE. And be sure to share this episode and the podcast with your girlies so they can say as well. Again, thank you, my girlie, for joining me, and more importantly, thank you for existing. Until next time, self-love bells.